In my experience in working with Saudi Arabia, there are a couple of things that you have to think about in working with the Middle East. A, being a woman. B, the kind of work that you do before you go. First, let's talk about the work. A, the research. You're going to get a contract, and the first thing you need to understand is that your contract is between your company, you as an individual, and another country and another set of standards. So the research you have to do is going to be a little different. Remember, first of all, the document is with a kingdom. So there's a series of assumptions that you may have about due diligence and transparency that don't really impact you in the same way. So get yourself a good lawyer, or more importantly, talk to somebody who's worked in the Middle East, and then they're kind of filling the gaps for you. That in working in a place like Saudi Arabia or other parts of the Middle East, you don't have the same kind of freedom to move around. So you're working somewhere where most things that you're going to be doing, you're going to have to ask for a series of permissions. Not so much to just travel from one country to another in the Middle East, but in your working relationship and also in your ability to leave the country at any time. In spite of the fact that you have a contract, you're still going to have to ask for permission to leave, and something that needs to be negotiated at the airports or as you're leaving your company in terms of the airline tickets and that sort of thing. So you have to kind of wrap your mind around that. So it's just another bureaucratic step that you're always seeking and asking permission to do something. Also, another thing you need to think about in terms of your contract, remember, language isn't key. So what you might think something may say that your contract includes that you can travel with permission to other places, that contract might actually mean that you can travel only within the country that you have the contract with. So you make sure you understand the nuance of that kind of situation. And also that goes for everything else that you think is a given. Your work environment, your work might say you will be provided a place to work. Now, if you're thinking that's a desk and a chair, you might be right. If you're thinking it's an office, you might be wrong. So asking those types of questions are key. And also, if you're going on to work somewhere and your housing is going to be provided, find out what that housing is. In many places it's really probably wonderful housing, but you need to understand what does that mean in terms of transportation. Am I going to be anticipated that I'm getting someplace on my own? Or are things going to be walkable? All of those types of issues are important, and food is key. If you're going to be working somewhere where there's a Western culture, because many companies have their own environments called compounds, which are actually massive places like forts, then you need to know what's the food going to be there. In Saudi Arabia, the food was fabulous because it represented all of the different cultures that were there, from Western to India to China, and the food of the native people there in Saudi Arabia. So that's a key, but you might be someplace where that isn't necessarily the case, and you need to know. So if you have food allergies, it's great. Your medical issues are the same. How are you going to be dealing with your health issues? Do you go to the hospital? Do you go to a doctor? Your dental issues. Those are issues you need to talk about and try to get as full an answer as possible in what you're going to do. So those are some